Thank you for having me, and hope everybody is staying safe and well, both in the physical world as well as the cyberspace, right? So,
Yeah.
yep. Without further ado, let me quickly hop over to the slides. I think there's a lot of presentation today, and
Mm-hmm.
definitely, hopefully everyone is not too tired from all the session yet, right? I know, and especially after lunch, it's hard sometimes trying to keep awake, right? So, but not to worry. Today, besides the slideware, I'm also going to basically do a bit of demo. Okay, so I think there's a lot of focus these days on how do we carry on our work in a hybrid environment, right? Especially with the current situation, a lot of us are working from home, and of course, with collaboration tools, it has allowed us to do major events like this, through a virtual space, right? So I think more importantly, right, we all know that the world has changed, right? The environment has evolved, the way that you and I as a consumer to the business, right, in terms of whether we are shopping online, we're getting our groceries online, or we're doing our business, our conferencing, our meetings online, right? The world has evolved and has changed, and right, and it's going to stay with us for a very, very long time, right? Even though things might get better, we might have people going back to the office more than usual, right? But the way that business are being done, the way that remote workers are going to be there, it's going to be there for quite a long time to come, right? And I think a lot of businesses, right, whether large, small, and partner like yourself, right, we are all looking into how do we deliver digitally first, right? And if we are past the digital or the web space, a lot of the businesses today are looking at how do we make sure that we have a mobile first strategy, right? So a lot of the businesses today are being conducted in the digital space as well, right? So it is an incredible time for business as we reach more people, as we reach more audience, and as we form more partnership online. And of course, the future of work, the future of modern enterprises is changing tremendously, right? Even as you see from the previous speaker, right? The way that performance is going to impact remote workers like yourself, being able to track performance, from a employee standpoint and from a consumer standpoint is going to be a critical part of the business that we are in today. So let's take a look at the future of work, right? A couple of key things. Nothing new, right? It's something that is becoming more prominent just because, you and I, we are working at home, right? We are managing our time from work and family in conjunction, right? We still have, critical workers that are working from office. There are still essential workers that needs to go back to office. But more importantly, the way that things has changed, especially with, collaboration tools, work is no longer a place you go to, right? Work is from anywhere, and a lot of time is what we are achieving, right, in our whether it's our mobile devices, whether it's our laptop, or whether we're in an office, or whether we're in a cafe or home, right? Work is now from anywhere, and sadly, right, we are working a lot longer hours than we need to, and sometimes with collaboration tools available, we are answering questions on work 24/7, right? So it is definitely changing, right? A balance needs to be there. However, with the tools and the solutions out here, today we are able to do more work, but at the same time, we hopefully are able to balance between, working from work and family life, right? So in terms of the solutions, right, the flexibility and amount of work, is important, right? And with hybrid work solutions that we talk about, and especially with adoption of SaaS and cloud solution, the flexibility is there, right? Now we can really balance our work. And more importantly, I always joke, right? Today I do not have to go back to office. I take away a couple of hours of commute a day. It goes back to spending more time with my kids, my family, but at the same time, it also goes back to, getting more work done, right? And that is one part that is of key importance from a hybrid work solution today, right? So a lot of the businesses today are looking at how do we have a solution in place, right, to help make sure that work gets done while we provide that flexibility to basically meet the various needs of customers, as well as the various needs of various countries and various regions, right? We are a global world today. Being able to work in a flexible time zone, flexible work environment is key, right? And then more importantly, how do we include, right, various culture, various time zone into our working environment? How do we have, ability of tools or solutions in place to make sure that, while we are getting things done, we are also inclusive and mindful of the experience from various country, various culture, and from various different people, right, in that aspect. And of course, more importantly, how do we continue to be supportive, right, in terms of making sure that while we are keeping that work and productivity up, how do we strike a balance, right? And I guess a couple of the nice tools that, whether be it in WebEx and some of the collaboration tools, or even from a Microsoft perspective, if you guys are not using it, there are do not disturb capability that you can really turn off, alerts, right, while you are doing spending time away from work, right? So I think those are some of the key things that, technologies are not only helping us to be more productive, but also at the same time looking into the needs of making sure that there is an equal balance, right? So that is very, very important from a business, from a connectivity, from a work perspective. Now, getting into a more serious note, which is the key topic that we will look at today, right? Is security, right? And one of the key things with all this flexibility, all these fantastic tools and technologies that are available today, right? The amount of devices, the amount of people, the amount of data that are exposed, right, are very, very different from, probably about 20 years ago, when internet started to become a little bit more mainstream, right? It also means that, while we are getting access and flexibility to data, to resources, the cyber criminal, right, are also having the same time like us, right? Because they can't go out, right? They are also having more times in front of their screen. And with that accessibility and the flexibility that technology brings to customers and partners like yourself, right, it also open up a new range of threats, right? The threats might not be changing that dramatically, but the attack vectors, right, are changing. So how do we look into getting a balance between work, life, as well as making sure that while we are doing our work or doing our day-to-day entertainment, watching Netflix and stuff like that, how do we ensure security is still there, right? And that is one key topic that we will drill deeper into. And then last but not least, in the whole hybrid work solution perspective, I think especially for the smaller organization, right, a key part of how SaaS or the cloud solution is really rapidly coming into mainstream is that we take away, or with cloud, it takes away a lot of the infrastructure requirements, right? Whether it's a software-defined wide area network, right? Or it's the application that are hosted online, or hybrid development environments in the cloud. The key benefit, right? One of the key benefits, it takes away the needs to host servers, equipments in data center, offices, and etc. Right? And that is one area which we are seeing as well, that in this whole hybrid workspace, not only are we looking at network security, but we're also looking at how do we, provide capabilities for business to strive or to thrive, right? While making sure that with the limited resources we have, right, in terms of company, right, and people, right, how do we get the same amount of people, hopefully, to do more productive stuff, right? And manage infrastructure, manage security solutions is one of the key, right, in addressing the needs of the major part of the small and commercial business today, right? So from a Cisco perspective, right, a lot of the Cisco partner here is familiar with the Cisco solutions. We have a huge range of solution, right, ranging from enterprise network, data center, collaborations, security, IoTs, and many more, right? And we continue to strive in that. And one of the key areas that Cisco has been focusing a lot on today is also how do we get some of this enterprise or state-of-the-art technology, into the hand of the smaller businesses, right? And help businesses and partners like yourself strive in this new world, right? In terms of segmentation, right? For the partners who are familiar with the Cisco strategies, been through a lot of our impact sections and stuff, you'll know that globally we have established the small segment for a couple of years at least, right? And one of the key areas that we continue to strive is that, how do we get the technology that is used by the large enterprise companies today, right? The same kind of capability, same kind of performance, same kind of security into the hands of small business. And really, if you look at it, in a lot of situations, unlike the enterprise or the larger governments and banks, for example, right, they have a lot more resource. Although resources in terms of human resources and whatnot are never enough, but the small businesses are really key, right? Because they are competing in a very, very competitive world. At the same time, they need that kind of technology, that kind of performance, right, to help them continue to strive and compete, right? And that's where Cisco, from a global, from a strategy perspective, is and has been focusing on how do we get our solutions into our customers' hand, right? Looking at the outcome that the customer wants to look at. We have portfolios that are designed, right, to suit small businesses' needs, and definitely working very closely with distributor, like VST, ECS, and yourself, right, to really go out and help the customers out there, right? So small businesses is becoming a key, right? Because of the way businesses are being done. Today, I do not need to have an office to start a business. I just need to register a company, get a SaaS or a cloud email solution, and maybe get a website up and running. And then I'm done, right? I have a business up and running, right? And to set up a commercial or e-commerce website could be a couple of hours job, right? And then I get an e-commerce up and running. So small businesses are becoming a huge part of the business today, right? And if you look at it, 35% of the IT spending globally today is from the SMB segment, right? SMB is growing very fast. Like I said, due to the way that business can be done. In the past, I probably need to get a job, a bank account, get an office, get equipment set up. It could take months, right? Today, in this virtual world, right, in Singapore, for example, it takes me a couple of hours to go online, register a fintech e-banking account, get my registration done with Accra, and in a day, right, I can have a business up and running, right? So that is how dynamic and how the business, especially from an SMB space, is growing, right? And that's where we think that we have an opportunity in partnership with you to make sure that we provide the solution that the small businesses needs to strive, right? And from a recovery perspective, especially from a business perspective, we are seeing the small businesses or the smaller businesses coming back, right? Whether it is, from a government initiative, and whether it is because, the new challenges in the new world, right, has also make a lot of the various businesses, maybe like delivery and stuff, becoming more important, right? And a lot of the businesses that you don't see in the past are also starting to pop up, whether it's a small mom and pop shop starting to go online to sell their things online, whether it is a food industries, getting their tailored cuisine online, the whole SMB recovery is becoming more rapid and relevant, right? And then with the ability to work from anywhere, and more importantly, right, the reach that the digital world has brought to the small business, which means that I can be selling anything here in Singapore, for example. I could be selling something into Philippines. I could be selling something to the US, right? The reach to the customer base has also changed. The cost of starting a business is also definitely lower, right? So definitely we are seeing that SMB are starting to recover. And that is where the business opportunity is for a partner like yourself. From a Cisco perspective, we do provide a whole range of solutions, whether we are starting from the connect, right, perspective, we're connecting the network, the SD-WAN, the WAN environment together. We have the solution to allow customers to collaborate. From an observability, from an analytics perspective, we have solutions that help you to analyze when you get your business connected, when you have solutions such as WebEx in place to allow you to do meetings, collaboration online. More importantly, right after that basic setup, you want to basically start to look at how is my network performing, how is my application online performing, how is my experience with my customers going on, right? So there are a whole range of solutions in the Cisco design platform that allows you to tailor solutions and add on your own services to make sure that you are able to meet and help the small business thrive. And more importantly, a key thought of mine for all of us, right? Whether you are using your mobile, your your laptop, or your tablets for home use or for business use. The key part is that security is really, really important. And I'll show you a demo of a difference between whether you have a basic security solution in place and what are the risks, and if you have something in place, what are the essential security solutions in place that any business, large or small, should have to protect your remote worker in this hybrid workforce environment. Okay, so shifting gear from the needs of networking, performance, observabilities, to more importantly, how do we secure the hybrid workforce, especially with Cisco Cloud Security Solution, to defend yourself and your customers against the cybersecurity threats. Right. So what's changed, right? As part of the quick introduction that I did, the business is changing, right? We have more apps today than probably I would have seen in the last 5 or 10 years, right? So we have more apps today, right? Businesses are launching applications from a web perspective, from a mobile perspective. It used to take me about a year to build a nice website and a mobile app combined, right? Whether you are using native, React, some of the technology that the developers are familiar with, to today, right? I can actually build a web and an app, right, in days, right? And if I need to tailor it a little bit longer, in weeks, right? So the application, right, are changing, right? And the development, the DevOps, the DevSecOps type of the story, this continuous delivery, continuous integration, some of the jargons that I'm throwing in here are changing, right? And that has changed the need from a network perspective, because more applications means more consumption of that network bandwidth, right? And more applications means more risk and more exposure. And therefore, right, with this change and with this massive rapid increase in devices, people, network, right, and traffic and data stored in on-prem and as well as the SaaS or in the cloud itself, cybersecurity demand, right, has never seen a stress or a need, right, like ever before, right? Just because it is a lot harder to basically protect or even to detect, right? And that is one of the key areas where we are seeing the change, right? Driven by business and exposed by business application as well, right? And to basically try and look at some of the key areas, right? Security is a very, very big scope. For those in security field for long, right? You will realize that security has a lot, right, of areas, right? If you're a CISSP, you look at your CBK, right? It is at least 11 or 7 CBK, depending on which era you were in getting your CSSP. But there are a whole range of attack vectors, whole range of technologies if you want to look at security. So coming back to the theme of this session is really about hybrid and cloud. In this session, we'll talk about two key areas of security that are relevant, right, to all companies and especially on the small business side of things, right? So if you look at SASE, which is a term that is basically coined by Gartner, it looks at how do we secure access, right? And on secure access and look at service edge, right? And service edge is really a lot on the branch, the remote offices. And of course, how do we then look into that whole humongous framework architecture and look at more relevant to you and me, right? In terms of how do we look at providing secure edge, which is making sure that I get that performance from an SD-WAN, from a branch perspective, and also ensuring secure access. Now, why is secure edge important today, right? So unlike in the past, whereby your network traffic, right, usually goes back to the head office and then go out to the internet, right? Especially in the olden days, you have VPN going back to the office, and then from there it goes to the internet. The world has changed with that application, increase in application adoptions in terms of SaaS, right? The bandwidth requirements has increased. Now, consolidating all information, whether it's relevant or not relevant to the head office and going out to the branch, has become expensive and not feasible, right? Because performance get impacted and it is no longer that secure. So what we are looking at from a services perspective is how do we now allow non-critical traffic to go to the internet directly, right? And that's where Secure Edge comes in to say that, how do I ensure that traffic going to the internet are still protected like they used to, right? And then if the traffic needs to go back to the head office, how do I still make sure that site-to-site VPN is available? And with SD-WAN, we now look at more from a software perspective or application perspective, routing between branch, head office, and internet now looks at what applications, right, are going through your network tunnel. Therefore, you can decide to say that certain traffic going to the internet, right, does not need to be as stringent as a traffic going into a head office looking at a intellectual property, for example, right? Secure edge becomes important, right? And then, of course, we are not forgetting the remote workers side of things, which means that our workers are working from home, right? Making sure that business continues to strive and thrive, right? But at the same time, when they're heading back to the office to get data through VPN, it is being secure. And more importantly, from a control and visibility perspective, how do I make sure that there's consistent control, right, and visibility from a performance and a security standpoint, right, both for a remote workers and from a branch to a head office perspective, right? So secure remote workers, secure edge are the two key areas that from a business perspective is where we think that are two major use cases that will help company starts in their journey towards protecting their environment, right, from cyber threat itself. Right, so the first use case, like I mentioned, is really talking about how do I get the branch office, right, to make sure that when they are going to the internet, right, they are protected against threats, right, whether they're accessing the internet, the SaaS application, or in some larger commercial and small customer environment, a hybrid or private cloud, especially if you are doing development, utilizing the cloud resources to do development, right? The developers does not need to set up the servers in your office anymore, right? They might be setting up private cloud development environment. How do I make sure that when the employees, especially those that needs to go back to the office that are doing development work or doing any of the normal day-to-day work, how are they being protected, right? From a identity, from a DNS or web security perspective, how do we look at from an SD-WAN perspective in terms of routing, and more importantly, as you progress in the chain, in the maturity or of the architecture of the implementation, how then do you look at visibility into the performance, right, in your development and deployment itself, right? So that is very much on the secure edge use cases, whereby it looks at the network edge, remote office, or the branch office. Now, for today's session, or the demo that I'm going to do later, is really going to focus a lot more on the remote workers, right? Which is probably about 75% of the workforce today, right? Most of us work from home, and that is one key area, right? And people are always a key attack vectors for cyber criminal, right? So making sure that the remote workers are secure and protected, especially in this hybrid work environment, whereby you still have, or you might still have data and application on premise as you move some of the less critical application to cloud. How do I strike a balance, right? And more importantly, right, because we are working from home, it means that our home network traffic, right, are also becoming more, how do I say, right? There are more mixed traffic, right? Whether it's home use or office use, right? And that also creates some challenges because, from a access to the application perspective, simple things like accidentally clicking on a web page, right, that you might be doing some shopping and then accidentally downloading malware or website that are trying to basically fraud or steal your credential, accidentally accessing those websites could also impact, right, your access or your access to the office application, right? So there are a lot more risks, right, when we look at crossing both personal traffic with the work traffic itself. Okay, so in terms of looking at the risk, right? So I think one of the key look at, what are the risks, what are the exposure, this various pain point or headaches, right, that you need companies to consider are no longer new. Now, what has happened in this new world is that we now need to, or at least the IT security or the businesses now need to consider a lot more things, right? From whether, how do I segregate my data, both work data and personal data, for example? How do I now look at restricting, remote workers having access to office data that they are allowed to when they have enough security blueprint or footprint that are installed in their endpoint, right, to make sure that they do not have malware, infected machines that could be potentially stealing data, to getting enough protection, right, and access for them to do their day-to-day work, right? And with the number of devices, number of applications that are increasing, right, how do we make sure that the user, depending on even to the extent of the device that they are using to access the data, should have or should not have access to the data that they need to get their work done. And more importantly, in today's world, a term that you guys might have heard of, like shadow IT, right? How then do I look at having the ability to look at whether employees are getting unsanctioned apps, right? Because it's easy to take out a credit card and pay for application online. Because why is it important? Because unsanctioned apps provide open up the company to larger risks as well, right? And then how do I make sure that VPN is in place to still make sure that critical traffic are protected, right? Only protected channels and employees and devices get access to data, so that you don't get data being stolen or exfiltrated from the company, right? And those are some of the key things, right, that are basically creating a lot more challenges for the businesses today, right? So one of the key things when we look at remote workers is really about, how do we then look at making sure that the employee or the workers is who he or she says uh, he or she is, right? So how do we verify the identity and establish trust, right? So I think that is becoming very, very important because in a lot of, even in the demo later that you will see, a lot of the gatekeeper today is the username and password. Identity now becomes the key, right, to the kingdom. So even before you hit a firewall, you hit a web security, your first level of protection that you need to look at is that username, password, right? And then from there, how do I establish the trust? The device that you're using to authenticate, is it secure, or has it been jailbroken, or has it been infected by malware? So simple things like this, are what I think and we believe that will help small businesses or in any aspect, any businesses to further protect the environment, right? Especially in the new hybrid world, to make sure that you are protecting your data, you're validating your users before getting access, right? So from a very simple, secure remote worker solution perspective, we think that it is important, right, to verify identity and even provide another layer of protection such as MFA. And with that, right, and if the company are looking at enhancing the support, how do I move from just multi-factor authentication, which is a recommended solution today for any businesses, to even looking at the device, right? After you authenticate with multi-factor authentication, how do I ensure that the device that I'm using to access company sensitive data are also approved and trusted, right? So that you allow secure access, and that will help in the business strategy or planning to say that whether I'm doing my hybrid work, right, with employees on the remote office from the remote branch itself, to how do I enforce the same security for the home or the remote workers. And at the end of the day, all this that we are putting in place is really to look at how do I defend my employees, right, and my business against the cyber threats, right? And from a security observability perspective, for those partners who have heard and worked, with Cisco in terms of providing security solution, you will know that Cisco, we do have our SecureX platform, which seeks to give you that observability or visibility from a security standpoint for the threats that we talk about, right? And security is a very large framework. They have a lot of solutions, but a couple of key things, right? If there's nothing much you have taken or you would take away from my presentation today, but hopefully these slides will help you, right, to reinforce a couple of key things. Our key takeaway is that today's businesses, if your company or your customers have not implemented any form of multi-factor authentication, really that this is an opportunity for you, right, to really talk to them and look at how Cisco solution will allow and help them to protect, their identity. And that is one of the key steps, right, in this new world, to really start the journey of protecting the business, the employees, and the data. Of course, VPN is not new, right? It's still a critical part of it in the whole grand scheme of things, especially when you have customers who has offices or data center that are on premise. That is one key area for remote workers to continue to work. Planning there needs to be looked into to make sure that security is in place, right? More importantly, from a cloud or from a remote worker standpoint today, is really about how do I protect my employees when they are accessing the internet directly, right, from their home, right? And that is important because even for home user, right, if I have my VPN connected right now when I'm doing a video presentation, right, that could actually slow down or impact my video performance. Now, the video performance hopefully is still okay now, right? Because I've turned off VPN, right? So it's an example to show that when do you have to have VPN access back to office, and when do I, for example, when I'm doing this, presentation that is publicly available, how do I ensure that I still have some form of security in place, but I'm not being restricted by the layer of security that you will get from a office environment, right, and still be able to do my work, right? And that is one key areas in this new world of a balance between getting back to the office through a VPN and getting data access, or getting direct connection to the internet so that I can get my day-to-day job done. Right. And then last but not least on the security platform or security tool, endpoint security, right? So endpoint security, I would assume, right, very bad assumption that most or every businesses has some form of endpoint protection. Now, if a customer doesn't have it, it is definitely worthwhile to look into that. And especially as like Mac users or even Linux users who are coming mainstream, right? Mac definitely. We all love Mac, and we all use Mac, for example, to do our day-to-day job. In our day-to-day business, right? So a lot of time, Mac doesn't really have a antivirus or endpoint or EDR solutions in place. So there might be different strategy for different Windows and other platform, right? So it is important to look into that to say that, hey, right, I have maybe a free, bundled window protection system in place, right? But what about my Mac? And more importantly, when I start to have BYOD or some of the or various types of endpoint coming into place, how do I still make sure that not only the device is protected from malware infection, but at the same time, the visibility to say that, hey, is my device patched? Is my device, or do I see, strange activities that's happening on my device that shows an indication of malware infection? And more importantly, right, it's not a matter of when will we ever get infected. It's a matter of when do we detect that some of our machines might be infected, and at the same time look at lateral movement, right, across multiple devices, right? So, and endpoint security is actually one key areas to look at while we look into the remote worker strategy or protecting our remote workers, right? So with that, let's move on to the secure remote worker scenario. We've talked about any VPN, we talked about endpoint security. More importantly, for today's session, I'm going to focus on two very, very easy and essential component, right? The first, of course, is the Cisco Umbrella solution. Oops. The Cisco Umbrella solution, which starts off with DNS security, right? So a lot of partners and even customers that says that there's nothing new in DNS security, right? So what's so great, right? The great thing about Umbrella is that it starts with DNS security and it allows you to enhance and evolve, right, into a secure web gateway for secure edge access, and move on to CASB, right, DLP for the cloud solution, and also remote browser isolation. A couple of more interesting, technology that helps to look deeper into security, right? So, but for a start, right, DNS security is a good start and essential for, starting a protection for your remote workers. And the best part is with Umbrella, it allows you to protect the edge, right, and the remote workers at the same time, and allow you to enforce a similar set of control, whether your employees at home or they are in the office, which is critical. And then the more important piece of the puzzle is really Cisco Duo or Cisco Secure Access, right, which is a MFA solution to start off with, but it allows you to look into single sign-on and device health, trust, and a lot more policies that you can look at to basically tune and ensure that identity is protected regardless of where your employee is. So with that, let's hop over to a quick demo. Okay, so in this screen that you are seeing here, right, is a machine, right, that I have spin off as part of my test environment in the cloud, right? So it's simulating as a typical machine that does not have Cisco Umbrella or Duo protection, right? So I'm going to just walk through a quick scenario, right? So from the start, you know, early in the morning, you know, when I get up to work, the usual thing I do today is look at WebEx, right? Which is my default collaboration tool for the office, right? And in this example, I have basically, you know, simulated a project, right? That I'm working with my team, right? Or a sensitive project called Project Phoenix. And then in a whole range of communication, you know, while we are trying to get more data, you know, a consulting company has, you know, provided a link, right, as for us to do some research. And you know, in this whole grand scheme of thing, that link, right, in this demo is actually a malicious link, right? So without you know, Cisco Umbrella solution in place, right, DNS security, if you remember, right, I will be able to click on this link, right? And you know, any normal people, you know, except like you and me, which is, you know, English speaking and in you know, ASEAN region, you know, it will say, hey, there's Korean character here, is funny, right? You won't you won't basically click into it. So remember, this is a demo, right? It really is, you know, not crafted for cyber criminal activities, but you know, imagine that this has been done a lot better and it has been crafted to simulate a website that you think that you know, you're getting information that you need. You could be surrendering your email address, right, in this aspect, and then providing your company email address, right, for example. And then by clicking on this, so this is a simulated phishing website where I'm trying to steal your credential. When you click on login, right, you might get an error, right? But what happens in the background is that your username and password has been stolen already by the cyber criminal, right? So this is key, right, in that aspect. And therefore, you know, from a umbrella and dual perspective, a typical scenario like this, a user would have, you know, their password stolen. Now, if you do not have a MFA solution in place, right, and in the event that, you know, a DNS security solution has failed, or in this case, that you don't even have a DNS security solution in place, you could be handing over your username and password to a cyber criminal, or in a other scenario, you could be downloading malware to the system, right? So that is an example of a day-to-day challenge. Now, let's switch mode and say that today, if you have a Cisco solution in place, right, umbrella solution in place, same project group, same malicious link. Now, when I click on the link, now if you have Cisco umbrella solution in place, it would have first stopped you from getting to the app website. And it is very important because I'm not sure about you, I visit about maybe 30, 40 websites a day, right? Just to basically do research and get my work done, you know, look at partners, look at customers' data, right? So the amount of website that we are accessing to, or the potential malicious website we are going to, is a lot, right? And there are hidden links in browsers and apps today that you and I might not even be familiar with, or not be able to, you know, unconsciously not notice about it. So that is the first part of the solution itself. Now, let's say if you have a DNS solution in place, and in the whole grand scheme of things, your credentials still get stolen, right? Like in my olden days, I could be pasting my my username, I'll be writing my username and password and putting it into a stick-it note here, right? You know, your username and password is still being stolen, right? And that's where, you know, a MFA solution is important, right? And this is just an example to show an integration with, you know, Office 365, but I could be integrating my solution with, you know, G Suite or any of the a lot of the collaboration tools or the Office productivity tool out there, right? So in this example, I'm going to just, you know, key in, if you remember, Alex, which is the user that has a credential stolen. Now, not only do I need to steal my does the cyber criminal needs to steal my credential, but now, right, the cyber criminal also needs to compromise my phone, right? So a dual MFA solution, which is you see on the left, the phone on the left, right? You notice just now there was a prompt, right, to say that, you know, do I want to approve my second factor authentication? So it's a very seamless, you know, second factor authentication is just like your push notification from your Facebook or any of your apps today, right? But what is different is that now you can see that, you know, there's a prompt that came up to say that, hey, I'm trying, Alex, I'm trying to log on to my Office application. This could be any application, right? And it also gives me the detail on the location, the time, and the username I'm trying to log into. Now, if this is not me, I could just deny it, and this will prevent the cyber criminal who has stolen my password to get access to the data. But since this demo is me, I just need to do is click on approve, and I will then be able to get access to the resources in the website. So with that, you know, it goes to show it has come to the end of my demo. So this shows you how important it is to have a MFA in place. Now, if I hop back to just quickly wrap up, right? So from a solution perspective, when we look at the whole platform of solutions, we look at connectivities, we look at controls, and more importantly, how do I converge this, right? So with that, couple of key takeaway, right? I think in today's world, right, we need to look at how to really drive, you know, adoptions and put technologies into the hand of SMB, right? And a lot of the productivity, connectivity conversations are becoming important, and more importantly, as point 3, right? You know, there's tremendous opportunity for partners, right, to help SMB protect their hybrid workforce from cyber threats. And the example or the demo I've given shows how quickly you can kickstart that, that capability to help protect your end user. With that, thank you so much for the time.